Ooh, that's a good one. Your Boilermakers have just improved to 11-1 after beating the Jacksonville Dolphins. Jacksonville is right around 205 in the net. This isn't new territory for your Boilermakers to play a team that's a low ranking team in the net, a team that wants to deny Zach Edey the ball. Bracket cover him, man in front, man in back, and then another man dropping in the passing lane. We've seen this tactic before, but today it ended a little bit differently than it did last time a team tried to throw that tactic with a similar quality of opponent. I'm going to talk about here in a second. Before I do it, let me thank our sponsors. First off, let me thank the people that gave me this nice sweatshirt. You might think it's home field apparel if you're just listening, but it's not. It's AJ's. Head over to AJ's on Vine, grab a brew, grab some beef, grab a burger. Burgers, beef, and beer. EatAJ's.com. That's AJ's. Adam, Jake, the whole crew there will hook you up. If you go there, you can get something delicious. Leave there happy. Also, if you're in the market for a TV, nope, not a TV, a t-shirt or a sweatshirt, man, I'm struggling with this copy. There's no written copy. Go over to homefieldapparel.com, grab a shirt or a sweatshirt or a t-shirt. Throw it into virtual cart. It'll be there. It'll be home. It'll be home soon for you. It won't be home by Christmas. There's no way, because we're now 4 days out from Christmas, from the fat man visiting your house. No, not me, Santa. Home Field Apparel. Enter Boiled23 at checkout. Get 15% off your first purchase. It's pretty nice. So Jacksonville brought a defense that was familiar to Purdue fans. They tried to. Like I said, they tried to use their big-ish guys to keep the ball out of Edey's hands, and they really did. Purdue just decided they weren't even going to try to force it in there. Very smart, and everybody else was hitting shots in the first half. Purdue got out to a relatively early 10-point lead, pushed it out to 15, then it flexed back to 10, went back and forth a couple times before Purdue just started having fun in the second half. Got up by 25 or 30 points. Most of the most of the starters were pulled. That was pretty much all she wrote. It was a fun game to watch because you saw a lot of guys playing in positions that are just little glimpses of the future, right? We got to see Heidi play above the rim, as did Colvin. A couple really nice finishes. Colvin hit a couple threes, I think, too. I'll look at the stats here in a second. I think he was one of the higher scoring players off the bench. A lot of guys on the bench got involved. Purdue hit the century mark, won 100 to 57. That's fun. Purdue missed 2 free throws, I think, though. And Newbert had a great joke on Twitter. He said that now that Purdue missed 2 free throws, everyone had to pay double for their slim chickens after the game. Well, if you're going to pay double, why not just pay a very reasonable price and go sit down at AJ's? They're not going to pay double. Good joke, though. Fun night, though, for your Boilers. Like I said, I love games like this. I love nights like this when Purdue's in cruise control, beating up on a team that they should beat up on. It was fun. Edey, everybody kind of got, in Mackey Arena, kind of rose to their feet when Edey attempted a long 2-pointer. His toe was on the line, according to everybody that was in the place. Also, it's an abridged crowd. It's an unusual crowd. Obviously, no paint crew. I was trying to put a nickname together, the Ain't Crew, but I thought that'd be taken wrong, maybe, as the people that, are anti-painters. But no, the alum crew and little kid crew, a lot of kids in the house today in Mackey Arena, according to a couple of my friends who were there. Weren't exactly the energy that Purdue usually brings, but Purdue, for sure, the basketball team, the people on the court, were kind of sick with it. It was a physical mismatch. When you play a team that you're better than, you should handle your business. They showed some good stats during the Big Ten Network telecast that Purdue's averaging close to a deficit of close to 40 points when they're playing. They called them a nice way to put it. One bid conference teams, conference foes. And one of the interesting things I took away from it was, Purdue, of course, beat is it Moorhead or Morehouse? I can never remember. Moorhead, I believe Moorhead State. They beat them by 30-something points. IU, of course, beat that same team by 1 point just a night or two ago. Purdue's a good team. Purdue's a good team. And they've shown it over and over. I had a little, I wouldn't call it a quick cast, but a little quick message on Twitter talking about how when I watched that Alabama versus Arizona game, I was marveling at the pace the game was played. And part of the reason the game was played at that pace is because Alabama doesn't want to stop anybody generally. They just want to run, right? And Arizona loves to score and get the shots off quickly. But when you watch that game and you see the game being played at that pace and that level, especially in the second half, both those teams were scoring a lot of points for about a 10-minute span. I'd say leading up to about 5-7 minutes left of the game. It was really a very fun game to watch. And you say, wow, how can a team keep with this pace? And then you think, wow, Purdue just beat both those teams. And you just have to be reminded how special this Purdue team is this year. And they still have better basketball in front of them, I believe. I think they can play better, get better. They just can. And we should appreciate and enjoy it. And I am enjoying it. I enjoyed tonight. I hope you did too. Hope you're not caught in that mode that we talked about. We were all worried about looking too far ahead. Games like this are just fun. I know it's bad or worse. Purdue teams have beaten up on a patsy before in Mackey Arena. That's nothing new. But just the manner they handle themselves, the kind of, I don't want to say professionalism, but it kind of is, just doing your job. That's a big deal. The guys at Sleepers Media were talking about, the spread was 32.5 points. I'm not a bettor. I do understand what 32.5 points means. And I joked that, degenerates were nervous when the game was hovering around 29, 30 points. And then Purdue just kind of stepped on them. And it was guys off the bench. It was Colvin. It was Heidi, like I said, really making a statement. A Jacksonville player got a little dicey, a guy named Nyblack, I don't know what his last name is. He was talking trash to TKR on a drive. Then a couple minutes later, I don't know if he yelled a dirty word. It seems silly to me. That's what Ray Day said, that he just yelled a curse word, which to me, if you just yell a curse word and that's enough to get a tech called in, it seems ridiculous to me. I don't mean to sound, like words don't matter. They do, but that's just silly to me. I hope there was more to that than that. But Waddell, who we don't get to see play much, went down. I think he missed the free throw. And then Nyblack came down and he shot free throws. So that was an interesting part of the game. But when a guy's on a team that's just getting the hell beaten out of him like that team was today, I've never understood talking trash at that point. So, and then a minute later, Colvin kind of got into it with one of their players, and he was talking trash to a guy. He probably said something like, "You may want to check the scoreboard, pal." Pretty low fruit there. So let's look at this. Like I said, Purdue's 11-1 now. They beat Jacksonville 100-57. All scores are led by Zach Edey in quick work. Edey started off slow, like I said. They weren't even working the offense through him because there's no need to. And you shouldn't have to force it in when you have a double team that switches to a triple team at times. Shouldn't have to. And so you saw guys like Mason Gillis looking for his shot early, which is awesome, but where he rolled his ankle. He's really gutting it out. If any of you have ever rolled your ankle, which I assume if you played any basketball at all, you've rolled your ankle. I've broken my ankle. I have degree 3-2 and had a third and a second degree sprain on my ankles back in college, back when I used to play. And I can tell you, when you have that happen, just lacing up your shoes and jumping right back into the play like Mason did tonight, hurts like hell. But he kept playing and was tough. Let's see. Gillis finishes with 8 points. And a rolled ankle, re-rolled ankle, because he rolled it about 10 days ago, the first time this season. Also had 2 assists. Solid. The highest scorer off the bench was Colvin with 11. Like I said, he was kind of dazzling at times. He had a dunk behind his head on a fast break, it's a lot harder than it looks. If you've even played on an 8-foot hoop, it's hard. But showed some of his athleticism, some of his quickness. He didn't really need some of the problems that Colvin has struggled with. Obviously, defensive spacing and understanding things all season there's been a learning curve there. Wasn't that important tonight, but it was great to see he and Heidi both played significant minutes. Heidi finishes with 6 points, 2 rebounds, an assist, and 3 steals. Purdue was clogging up their passing lanes, Jacksonville's passing lanes. Edie had 18 points, 8 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, real stat stuffer of a night. But the guy who probably played, I would say, kind of earned it or played the best in the starting 5 was Lance Jones, 16 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, 3 steals. He probably could have easily, I mean, he could have easily scored 20 points tonight, but Painter gave him limited minutes. Trey Kaufman-Renn, 15 points, 4 assists, 6 boards. Lawyer was really quiet. He had a couple of threes, but also had he had a play where he dropped a pass, then tried to go in and lay it in, and it was tossed, not out of bounds or into the first row, but it was a significant block on Lawyer. Lawyer's an interesting guy. I think everybody would say, in the nights that he's not looking for his shot, it looks like he's moving at a different speed. He was definitely not playing at the same speed he did versus Arizona. Smith had a quiet game. He wasn't really looking for a shot at all. So 2 field goal attempts for Smith, and he finishes with 2 points, 6 assists, 3 boards, 3 steals, just 1 turnover. Next up, Purdue plays in 8 days. I'll be at that game, I believe. But they've got a nice break right now. My wife asked the question. She said, will they get a break now? I said, I think they will. They've earned it, right? So, Purdue will probably get a nice break as they head into Christmas. Everybody comes out of this one healthy. I heard a couple people, I don't know if it was Field of 68 or Sleepers or one of those, calling tonight's game a snooze bar game. I'd call the next game the snooze bar, right? Because you've been in your winter doldrum a little bit. You've been sleeping. And you got one more. You got to hit it. They're playing Eastern Kentucky. Danny Hope is actually starting for EKU. No, he's not. But EKU on the 29th. And like I said, I'll be in the house. That'll be fun. And it's another game that Purdue needs to handle their business. They just do what they did tonight. And I love seeing these guys get a significant amount of minutes that don't usually get them right now. This is how a team grows up. Painter handled it brilliantly, I think, tonight. Didn't play anybody too long. Didn't overwork anybody. Hopefully, we can see Edie hit a 3. I hope if I were Edie, I'd say to Paint, in these games where we're up by 15, 20 points, I'm going to attempt a 3. It's just a question of when. I'll try to work it into the flow of the offense or whatever, but why not? Get him a 3. He's having fun out there. So, but Edie's 16-8. That's kind of what you want to do at those games too. It's another thing for his Player of the Year candidacy. I don't think it matters to Purdue very much. I don't think it matters to Edie very much. But it sure looks like he's a runaway for the Player of the Year again. I don't think I see anybody else in that conversation really. A lot can happen during the conference schedule, but he just looks completely dominant. And every pundit is saying the same thing, that it's Edie's race to lose. So got a couple of you guys are on there live. Really appreciate that. I'm going to talk to you right now. Ted Berkey says, Boiler up. Glad to be able to let the walk-ons get some playing time. Agreed. Andy Day. Love watching the walk-ons stretch the lead and have fun. Yeah, that's a good point. I love seeing not only walk-ons come in, but extend the league. I didn't even mention, and I should look at this real quickly. Berg off the bench I think he had 3 dunks. Yeah, 8 points. 8 points, 2 boards, 2 assists. Is that right? No assist. 8 points, 2 boards, 4 for 4 from the field. And let's see, free throws. He was 0 for 2. 0 for 2. But I say this all the time. If Berg comes in, especially, I think he came in with just under 6 minutes left in the game. How much of a hard assignment is this for these teams that don't have a guy that's over 6'9", right? You've had Edie hit you, and then you've had TKR hit you. You've had First come in and hit you, and now your time to just coast to the finish line, they bring in a 7'2" guy who's just a beast. If you think of it, check out Berg's quads, because I think what we get used to is looking at Edie and a 300+ pound monster of a 7'3" player, and then instead you've got Berg come in with he is strong as hell, and he trains with Brandon Brantley every day. That's one of Purdue's little, the secret sauce is Brandon Brantley's ability to train these guys up. Just check out how big and strong he is from the waist down. And that's where this all starts. That's what Edey's trick is, being able to notch out position early in a possession. And Berg does the same thing. He's growing up. He's a work in progress, but that's hard business to have to deal with that guy after 30 minutes of just getting your butt kicked. Pat Gottschall says, note to Indiana. Sorry. That's how to handle a holiday season by game. Yeah, no kidding. IU plays right now, and they'll probably beat up on Northern Alabama or somebody like that. Right now, I think they played 2 games in 3 days, which is pretty unusual this time of year. Ed Albanese says, hello, boys. Yes, love to see the backups come in, get some playing time. Berg had some awesome dunks, which Painter could let him play more. Also, it's almost 3 a.m. here. EU jet lag. Oh, so you're on a trip, a little Christmas junket to Europe. That's nice. I've always wanted to do that, and I've never done that. I've never taken. That's wrong. I took a pre-Christmas trip to Scotland. A friend of mine, another Boilermaker, married a girl from a study abroad program in Scotland. That was a ton of fun. But I think we were home by the 22nd. So I've never been abroad during Christmas. I think it'd be a ton of fun. So have a good time, Ed. Travel safely. Adam P. says, nice to see several minutes from the subs. Thought the play was still pretty good. Berg, I think, shows promise for next year. Seemed like he was moving better. Yeah, he moved great. I don't think anybody has huge expectations for Berg, even being a starter next year. I think TKR, it's his spot at center. I think first is athleticism, by the way. He came in again tonight. His first step is really quick. His ability to make room on spin moves. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe it's because he's so fresh. Because last year and even the year before, it seemed like he played a lot before January, and then by January he had kind of hit a wall. I don't think there's any chance of that happening this year because he looks like he's in such good shape. But his athleticism really gets my attention. So Purdue's loaded in the front court. So. Let's see. Need to be in verse says, congrats to Indiana on pulling off the close upset against Moorhead. Yeah. Sometimes the underdog pulls it off. Yeah. Good on IU. Ed's back. Ed says, by the way, this is exactly what I think Edey should do. Attempt a couple threes each game. Agreed. Be certainly bring another dimension to the team. Yeah, I agree. Just to drag a guy out just a little bit. It's funny when you play a team that commits to this style of play that Jacksonville did today and that FDU did last March, it should go this way, right? You should have guys be able to make shots. Tonight, it was Gillis who softened things up and Jones just knocking down shots. Pretty simple. And it doesn't take much to get a team completely in trouble by playing that way. It really doesn't. And then by the time you figure it out, you're kind of in big trouble. One thing they didn't do, which is interesting because you're not hammering the ball into Edey and forcing the issue, is you're not getting them in foul trouble. You're just wearing them out. So Shane Hinkle says, I've never seen us score for the other team before. Yeah, I think it was Heidi who had a tip in off a board. Was that off you guys can tell me? I think it was off a free throw. Heidi had a tip in for the other team. I think that's scored as the nearest player to it if you're an official scoring guy. I believe the nearest player, I don't think it's like, they don't give like team points, of course, in the official box score. So lucky whoever it was. Mohill 93 Boiler up. Good to see you. Mr. Pepsi 313 says congrats to Painter, 4th in wins in Big Ten. I saw that the other night, and there are a couple things that are really cool that are happening right now. Number one, Painter is about 85 games, something like that, away from Katie, and he's much younger, obviously, than Katie was. All time in wins, so that's pretty noteworthy. And he's doing some special stuff. Years ago, like 3 summers ago, I did a post talking about when Painter would pass Katie, and doing that research for that, I was like, wow, this is not far off at all. If you're an old person like me, and time goes fast, but it's pretty noteworthy. Painter is really closing in fast, and the way he's winning, right? They're winning so many games a year. It's going to be a lot easier to just fly by Katie. It's pretty cool. Brian T says one more to complete the non-conference undefeated run, and that'll make them 35-0 if they can handle their business versus Eastern Kentucky. I did not look at Eastern Kentucky's net before I came on here. If I were a betting man, I'd say they're probably in the, I bet they're in the high hundreds. I was just guessing, but I haven't seen them play. I'll plead my ignorance here. Of course, Western Kentucky also. Eastern Kentucky and Western have a lot of Purdue connections, right? If you want to research on that, you can have some fun with that. But Newman, of course, at Western Kentucky right now, and Jeff Brom from Western Kentucky, and Eastern Kentucky, Danny Hope, and kind of sister campuses, if you will. Let's see. Shane Hinkle says all 4 Berg field goals were all dunks. Yep. Derek Mulliken. My favorite part of these, hearing the ice clink in the glass when it starts. And my ice has gotten smaller. It's not that warm in here, but yeah. Somebody said this. Is it Need of Being Versed or Bitcoin something? Said he enjoyed the sensory experience of the beginning of the show. And you know what? I said, okay, you know what? Let's do this. And so in response to him, I said, I'm going to start doing this every show, because what it does is, if you guys have ever done anything streaming, there's a little bit of a buffer. And so as that buffer's waiting to spool up and I can see that I've actually started, my video is working, I have to fill time. And I thought of doing something where I came in from offside of the camera, but if you catch me running away, it kind of ruins the illusion. So I think I'm gonna keep the taking a little sip and a swirl of my drink before, regardless if it's ice water or tonight I've got some of the best, most delicious rye that you will ever try. Angel's Envy rye is just incredible stuff. And thanks to my daughter's soccer team, they gave me a gift card to Total Wine, which I don't have any affiliation, but Total Wine, if you want to call and sponsor, you're welcome. But so I got to buy an expensive rye, an unusual rye for me. I usually won't spend that much. And it used to be you couldn't find Angel's rye either. It was hard to find. But I think Anish brought a half bottle to my place a couple years ago, so I got to enjoy it then. That is phenomenal stuff. So that's what I'm drinking tonight, in case you're curious. You're probably not. Smith looked a hair bothered by the pressure. Yeah, he did. Jacksonville threw the press at Purdue. Smith was tackled, honestly, but he should have gotten rid of the ball earlier. I think it's okay. I think him getting a little bothered by a team trying to play really frantic brand of basketball, that's a good thing. So, yeah, he did. Good point, though. B. Murph says, and if that is B. Murph, my old buddy Brendan, is that possible? Brendan Murphy's on here? I haven't talked to him in years, so I hope it is. But B. Murph says, does Braden take a step off the pedal when we play worse teams? I don't think he takes a step off the pedal in his pace. So, but I do think, you can answer that question if that's the same B. Murph, if that's you, Brendan. It's been years, if that's who it is. Good dude. But if it's not, still, I appreciate you sounding off. I think his pace does not change. In fact, I think this is a really good thing about Smith. To me, one of the best things about Smith is that he plays at a high pace, but he changes his focus and what he's trying to do in the game. And I love it. I love the fact that he plays at a super high pace, super high effort level, but he just changes what he's doing. He's not looking for his shot because he doesn't need to. He's working on other things. There's an old principle in sports. I love it when people say the 1% principle. Get 1% better every day. Work on something that you need to work on. I always tell my daughter, that's a great thing to do when you go out on the field. Say, I'm going to work on one thing. I've told her to take her Sharpie and write on the inside of her cleat the one thing she's supposed to work on when she plays soccer. And right now it's kicking with the left foot. Get better now. I don't think Braden Smith's worried about kicking with the left foot. My pal, Alfred Dowd, says, rye with a rye. Yep. Thank you, Dad. So this is not one you bought me, though. My dad has this great surprise he does for me every now and again. He'll just bring me by a bottle of something that a liquor store has suggested, and then I'll put it in the cabinet. And generally, we'll both have a little sample. I don't think he's a huge bourbon fan or rye fan, but I know he likes sampling with me, and I think he's more of a brew man. So absolutely, I don't need to think that. But anyway, Need of Being Versed says, thanks, Shane. You too, brother. Boiler up. I don't know what that is. Yeah, it's probably a response to that. I'm sorry. Okay, B. Murph says, that is my name, but a different Brendan Murphy. Okay, that's Brendan Murphy. You're Brendan Murphy. I do appreciate you being here. But Brendan Murphy is an old He's a guy that was in broadcasting. I believe he was on WLFI at one point in West Lafayette, I believe. But we used to hang out, interact, whatever you want to call it, years ago. If you don't know this, Boiled Sports has been around, a little history since we've got a slower night. Boiled Sports has been around for 17 plus years. Okay. And so we've had, lots of local sports, I don't want to say celebrities, but personalities come through, and we've interacted with them at different times. We've tried to stay independent. That's one of the things we'd like to do, not get involved in a network, grow it organically. So people like you guys who are tuning in with us and just enjoying the, camaraderie, post-game camaraderie, we always love that. But Brendan Murphy was a guy who was on, I'm almost positive. He was either on the radio or television. I think he was on TV. And he was a great guy. We would interact at promo events and stuff like that. And so I do appreciate you clarifying. So, and I appreciate being here. Boiled Sports is my jam, says Brennan. Now I love this podcast. Thank you for being here, and I appreciate that. I got to tell you guys something. So my day, I've told you that YouTube's important for me. I have a job that many days I'm able to have a podcast, a video podcast, and you guys got so many choices. What a golden era for Purdue information. And if you want to call us, we're not journalists. We're just guys like you, we're not girls like you. We're like you guys and girls who just love Purdue, and we like talking about it and relating here, the live podcasts and in the questions and on Twitter. It's awesome. But what a great time to be alive. What a great time to be a Purdue fan, because you can turn on so many people, so many different styles out there. I love the fact there's all these great podcasts out there, and hopefully I'll get to meet some of these guys and some girls that are doing it right now. And we've met many of them, but there's a lot of good options, and I do appreciate you guys making us part of your post-game ritual. So I also have something to say, and if I don't see Jay Money's not here in the margins. We talked about doing a modified Handsome Hour tonight after the game. I gave him a little bit of a hard time. I don't like. If you guys know me, I do not like talking behind people's back ever, and I'll just address it straight up. And so my whole thing is, after Purdue beat Arizona, I was like, dag nab, if we're going to do this, if we're going to get together and do a Handsome Hour, you should do it after they beat number one team. It's the first time in 23 years they had beaten the number one team. They had the nation's attention on that one, and I just thought, we'll get together on this. I know many of you want to see a Handsome Hour. For some reason, you want to hear Jay and Anish talk too. You don't just want to listen to me, and I get it. One voice can get old. But we talked about having one tonight, and he had some things come in front of him. This is the thing. Like, these guys, I don't ever want to, they got a ton of stuff going. So, and Jay's reason for not coming tonight was a good one. He coaches his son, and they had a practice come up, and so he was assistant coaching basketball tonight for I think his little money is what he calls his son, and it's a good reason. That's a great reason. So my kids are well, that's not true. My son's older. My daughter's within a month of his son. So they actually were, I think they had either a day apart according to the planning. And then I think both of them just things got scrambled when they were actually born. Let's see. Anita Beanverse says, best Purdue postgame. Thank you. I really can't tell you how much I love hearing. It means a lot to me. Win or lose, I like the balance between venting and staying objective. Makes sense. Yeah, you guys can see emotion can get the best of me sometimes. My dad knows better than anybody here. I don't know if he's still with me or if he checked out. Yeah, I'm a guy who my emotions are on my sleeve generally, and so this has been a good exercise over the last 17 years, the way we've changed the site in just dealing with when I'm angry, when I'm super happy, why do I take this seriously, all these things. So I do appreciate it. But I try to be thoughtful, at least. And like last year, the FDU game, post game, that was a super hard one, but I was like, I gotta get out here because you guys are feeling it too. You feel crushed by this, and if you were an old sports fan, you knew what was coming. The fallout was going to be bad. The things you're going to be dealing with were going to be bad, and sure enough, they have been. But here's a question for you. I thought about this tonight because a lot of people have talked about it's obvious. The only time one has lost to a 16 NCAA tournament was Virginia. They came back. They won the national title. Went through Purdue to do it down in Louisville. I was in that game. We all know that history. Okay. But they seemed to make a deal because everybody said, I'll take that deal. And I obviously would take that deal. I'll take a Final Four. I said that before. A Final Four will be enough to get that taste out of my mouth. I just want to see that and see let the chips fall where they may at that point. If you saw this, CBS Media on Twitter, they had three of their on-air, Rob Doster and company, picked who their Final Four was. And they had rules, I think, only one. They could only have one team out, or they had to have one team outside of the top 25. Make their Final Four. Made it interesting. All three of them picked Purdue as the national champ. And I'm like, it's cool. And Purdue's playing like the best team in America. There's no doubt. They've earned it. But let me ask you a question. If Purdue does what Virginia does or did, and let's just cut off at Final Four. Let's make that deal or that question a comment thing for you guys in the comments below after this is on, it's on tape. Is if Purdue goes to the Final Four this year, number one, is that enough to get that taste out of your mouth? For me, it is. I'll be real honest. A Final Four is enough. The second question is, if they become like Virginia in either Final Four or national champ, and they kind of fall off as a program and they aren't as good anymore, for many reasons. By the way, Virginia's not dead. They're just not good right now. They'll probably come back. They got a great coach, one of the best coaches in college basketball. Would you be okay with Purdue kind of falling off the proverbial cliff? You can answer that question yourself in the comments here or in the postgame, but something to think about. For me, like I've always said, Januaries and Februaries in Indiana are soul crushers for me. It's so dark. It's so cold. I didn't figure out how much I disdained January and February in Indiana until I was 40. I don't know why. And I've lived in Massachusetts, and it's worse there. The weather's worse. It's darker, so on. But college basketball and Purdue being really good in January, February is always fun. It's salve to the wound. Makes those months go quicker. I'm already looking towards spring. My son's birthday is in February towards the end. That's a big deal for me. I'm like, okay, we're almost there, right? But just a question. If Purdue just sucked after, they're not going to, by the way. If they go to the Final Four this year, or if they have a great run in the tournament, regardless of what that great one is defined by you, okay? Not by me. Let's say the great run. If they go, they're going to be really, really good next year. But the really interesting thing is you're going to have a cost to this. If you think back, I think the best comparison I can think of is Michigan under Beeline. They had a couple guys that went pro early because they could. During one of those magical runs, you have a guy or two get hot that everybody's like, okay, they got my attention. They have a physical, they're, let's say 6'6". And I can think of a couple guys on this roster that are 6'6", and maybe one of those guys, say Colvin, gets hot and he hits a couple big threes. That's got the attention of the NBA scouts all of a sudden. You're like, okay, can this guy go in the top 2 rounds? He might be able to. If you make a significant run, you're on the big stage. So the cost of that national title might be guys running to the portal, trying to go get a sweeter deal, panhandling. I don't want to say panhandling, but seeking a bigger deal for the NIL, whatever, or maybe guys just outright leaving, going pro. Even in that case, Purdue's class coming in, these 6 guys that are coming in are going to be awesome. And there are pro-type guys in that. Of course, Catchings and Harris specifically are pro-type guys right out of the box. They are really good players, really physically gifted, long, athletic dudes that can score. So Purdue will be good next year. And sorry, IU fan who's listening, Purdue's going to be good next year. But they won't be like this. They won't be coming in number 1. They would be top 10. Again, you watch. If they make noise in the tournament, they will be top 10 next year. That's the crazy thing. That's the thing that's so awesome about what Painter has done as he's hit his stride as a coach and as a recruiter. They are reloading. They are absolutely reloading. Sean Stevens says, been a fan for a few years. As long as you're talking, I'm listening. Appreciate it, Sean. Great insight. Shane Hinkle, for me, Final Four or bust. Okay, good. Final Four, good. I don't know how we as Purdue fans can be greedy for a national title when we got to get over that first hump. Like I said the other night, it's like the Yankees and the Red Sox. The Red Sox had to get through the Yankees to get there, right? The Pacers had to get through the Bulls, right? Think of some stupid analogy. But Virginia had to get there too, right? We can think of a ton of these. But sports are funny, right? When the straw breaks, generally That was all that held back the dam, and then big things happen. I always think about a world. What would a world where Purdue basketball is a reigning national champ look like to you and I? I don't know. I mean, I wear too much Purdue gear as it is, and our Boilers haven't won anything big and national ever. And I live in Purdue gear, or AJ sweatshirts. So let's see. Dave Budnick says they need to stay good until 26, so Mexican fans like me can go see it live. Mexican fans, what? Okay. You got to explain to me. Yeah, I don't understand that, but they're going to be good through 26. The whole thing that I am worried about, you've heard me talk a little bit if you come here often, is the changes to the NCAA that are coming. They are imminent. They are sizable. The paid athlete division of the NCAA will shake everything up. I think every team in a Power 5 is going to try to stand and be in that paid division. You know, we've called it the Super Conference is probably coming, but before that, the NCAA is trying to stop that Super Conference because the Super Conference would really make the NCAA null and void if you really look at what would happen with the rule structure. But it feels like the NCAA, with their idea of that trust, that they will pay the players through the trust, so there'll be like a money laundering thing, a holder of money. So TV dollars will be funneled to the NCAA, then they'll be funneled back to players, probably to regulate the amount of pay these guys are getting. And then on top of that, the next step is the NIL will be controlled by the universities. So that's when those big TV contracts, which the Big Ten's TV contract is the biggest on the books right now. The SEC's is right after it. Every team in the Big Ten is going to make between $70 and $90 million within a couple years, except for the teams that are late ads, UCLA, USC. And if you're paying attention today, you saw that Florida State has gotten one step closer to leaving the ACC. And on top of that, 6 other schools met with Florida State behind closed doors and started talking about the things they need to do to legally leave without having to pay a fee. If they all leave at once, I think they can leave and not pay a fee. If they leave ones and twos, like Clemson, Florida State, North Carolina, whatever, the conference they go to will probably give them a loan, so they won't pay them the full TV payout. And in that time, we'll pay for the buyout of the other conference, if that makes any sense. So that's what's going to happen. All these things line up to that, go towards that next weird chapter of college sports. So anyway, let's see. Melissa Hunt, thank you for checking in, Melissa. Great to see you. Melissa, by the way, if you guys don't know this, she gets mentioned by Ray Davis as one of the super Purdue fans. That's pretty awesome. Just to have one of the Purdue basketball legends know you by name. It's cool because I think they were both students at the same time. It's very cool. She says, the problem is I don't see us falling off with what we've got coming in. I'm with you. Completely with you, but sure, I'd take it. I was a student when we were last in the Big Ten. If we get the Final Four, I'll go back to that. And I talk about this time often, Melissa. You know, fans like you, you saw some dark days. My brother-in-law graduated from Purdue with Teague and Landry, and that was a surprise team. But then the team that you were there with, you know, with Hammonds when he was young, Ray Davis, that team brought them back out of the cellar. And then they had the heartbreaking loss against Cincinnati when they were an 8 seed NCAA tournament. And then they lost to Arkansas Little Rock. And then that team kind of brought Purdue back to where it needed to be in all ways, right? Ray Davis, I think, was the thing that made that. He was the player that made it happen because he helped change culture, right? It's his hard-nosed attitude, his ability to become a defender when, if you don't know anything about him, he was a scorer in high school. Incredible. So Nita Beamer says, I'd be okay with it for a few seasons, but I think it's unlikely with our incoming class and folks hanging around. Good question, though. Yeah, so something to think about. A friend of mine calls it the question, and his question is, if Purdue, so I'm sure he's not listening, but a friend of mine says, if Purdue were to win a national title, would you be okay with the program being last in the Big Ten or not existing in college sports other than in name only for 10 years? 10. I'm not okay with that, by the way. And this is where we start arguing. He and I argue. It's a dumb question because that's not how this works. Because generally, you win a national title, now you are up on the other upper echelon. By the way, the media, we've been talking about this for 2 years. The media loves Matt Painter. They want him to walk through that door. They want it so badly. Rob Doster talked about he's the best coach in America, or one of them, and Painter needs to go get that Final Four, go get that national championship, because he's rooting for it to happen to him, to get that taste out of his mouth, paint. And if he does that, can you imagine a Matt Painter who, in the tournament, loses the one problem he's got, which is nervousness. He's always had nerves in the tournament. He understands it's do or die, one game. And it all comes down to one game. But if Matt Painter can lose that because he tastes the national title, what happens? Are we in a real weird world where Purdue all of a sudden is a national juggernaut? How about that scenario? Something to think about. The cart is way in front of the horse right now, but if we're spitballing, let's go for it. David Budnick says 26 Final Fours in San Antonio. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the explanation. Yeah, so that'd be a lot of fun. And I think 26, if I were you, I'd just kind of circle that date. They're gonna be in San Antonio. How about that? B Murph says, does TKR become our guy down low next season? Yeah, he's the guy. And a lot of Purdue fans have prognosticated that TKR is transferring out. I don't know where they get their ideas. TKR is a very interesting, different cat. He's a very thoughtful dude. Sure, anybody can transfer at any time, but let's not forget, that was a high 4-star recruit that came to Purdue and said, yeah, sure, I'll redshirt. And he had a little bit of injury that he was dealing with, coming off of. But he decided to redshirt. That is not normal behavior. He didn't say, I'm going to get mine. He said, I need to get better this year and I need to get healthy. TKR is a special guy. TKR, when he is the man inside, is going to be awesome. We expected the breakout year this year. Some did. I don't know why you do that when the returning National Player of the Year is on your team, but some people did. So, but that's not going to happen this year. It's not a breakout year this year. So, Dave Budnick says, sorry, 25. Okay, 25, I don't think so. But for the record, I think, let's see, if you have Catchings would be I think Catchings, and I haven't told anybody publicly, I think Catchings is the biggest signing to Purdue's basketball program in my life, other than Glenn Robinson. So there's and I don't know if I've said that publicly here. I've said it to the Boiled Sports guys. And the reason I say that is because he's a true modern pro-style NBA player now. He's close to 7 feet tall. He's got very long arms. He can shoot. Everybody's wondering, where's the alpha? Obviously, we know who the alpha is this year. You can probably see whose team it is next year. I think it's Smith and Lawyers, probably Smith's. After that, though, right? Who's the next guy? Catchings, I think, in his second year on campus, if he stays that long, is absolutely an alpha dog, Carson Edwards type of guy with a chip on his shoulder who's 6'11", rangy, and can play every position on the court. Okay, that's special. That's big. And I don't think I'm over-speaking. If you guys follow high school basketball, I don't talk about recruiting. I talk about guys once they're signed. Cannon Catchings is special. He is flat out special. Nita Bean Verse says, hard pass on the 10-year scenario. I get that. Melissa Hunt reminds us the Johnsons really just had too much sauce. Yeah, they did. Too much sauce for Purdue. Way too much sauce. And if you know, and you don't, Melissa, the stuff that was happening behind the scenes, or not that far off the scenes, just off the court, that final season where the Johnsons were there, that was a mess. And we had kind of a mess followed by a mess. Paint cleans stuff up, which is awesome. Alfred Dowd says, I'll take the Final Four. Yeah, Final Four, not a championship. I'm with my dad on this one. Sean Stevens says, how long do you think it'll be before college players start using arbitration? So, Sean, this is a good question. This is a much bigger question, though, because all the stuff that's in place, that's been in place in college sports, needs to be dismantled with this paid subdivision coming. Right? I said this the other night. You have to have contracts. You have to have tamper rules that have real teeth to them. You have to have an NCAA that actually does its job, which it won't happen. That's why the NCAA might get moved out of the way, just because this is big boy business now. This isn't like schools saying, okay, take me in. This is big business. When I say big business, I mean that in every possible way. Lots of money being exchanged, gambling stuff on the line, all the stuff that I am just not a fan of the scenario. It's not because I don't want guys to make money. That's not it. Oh, great. If these guys can make money, I do not disparage the player. I disparage the structure and what's on the other side of this tall wooden fence, what's coming next. And I've always liked college basketball, and I've always liked college football, and I hate some of the possibility that might be around the corner. Could it be great? It could be good. I think what we have now is great. So that's me. That's me showing my bias. So, yeah, all this stuff is going to change, though. So I don't know if I answered your question. I just told you that I think a lot of things have to change with contract structures, with everything. Everything changes. Patrick Goschel says, I like the national juggernaut scenario. Paint didn't look nervous in 2019, by the way. You know what Paint did in 2019? Paint did two things. I thought the biggest moment of his coaching career was when Purdue was playing Tennessee and Nogel Eastern came over by Purdue's bench. I was in the Yum Center and Purdue was panicking, I think because Tennessee had just taken the lead. And Eastern comes over, he's pounding the ball right by Purdue's bench, and Paint just goes like this. Wait, we don't need a timeout. He pretty much was saying, it's going to be okay. You guys can do this. And he stepped back. He thought, I've got a team out here that knows what they're doing. And I've got guys out there that can make plays. So it wasn't just Nogel Eastern, as we know, because we're from the future too. It was Carson Edwards, Ryan Klein, special bunch, right? But Carson Edwards' ability to say to Coach Painter earlier in the season in different games saying, don't pull me, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and we're going to ride with me here, right? And Painter saying, I'll give this a try. That was a big deal, right? Because really, if you remember back, Boogie as a freshman and even as a sophomore, a lot of Purdue fans kept saying, oh, he's going to transfer. He's angry. I talked to Boogie in the concourse of Mackey Arena with my young son at that point. It was freezing cold. He was missing Texas, Boogie was. He was just coming off a game that he got benched at the end of the game. Painter benched him a lot freshman year because he would shoot like Boogie Edwards shoots, which is all the time without conscience. Every shot is good. You're a freshman, you really haven't earned that. And Painter hadn't given him the ability and the rope to do that. But Edwards took it, and Painter said, you know what, you've earned this now. And he let it ride with Edwards. And look what happened. Edwards threw everybody on his back and threw up historical numbers. The sad thing, the thing for a Purdue fan like me said, wow, you had a guy do something that Steph Curry couldn't do in the NCAA tournament, and Purdue couldn't get to the Final Four. That's the toughest medicine to take, right? That's the toughest to think about. Let's see. Nita Beaver says, Dowd, I've thought about the exact same scenario with Painter. I love the idea of Purdue becoming a blue blood. Dare to dream? Yeah, you can dream. You can dream, but it's really hard if you're like me and you're generally... I used to be a true optimist, just my dad would tell you, a true optimist when I was younger. And I think as I got older, the world kind of changes you and you become a realist. I don't think I'm a pessimist by any means. I have a pessimist in my family. Maybe he's listening right now. But I've become a realist. I think any of my family would say I'm a realist. And that comes from like living through things. The whole thing I always look for is I look for history. What's a program that's like Purdue that is looking to do what Purdue is about to do, which is kind of take their seat among the elite, and they haven't done it yet, but they still have this program history that were really good and solid. So I've thought about that. Obviously, Villanova under Jay Wright is a good comparison because Jay Wright waited a while before his career kicked into high gear, and they got 2 national titles. The difference is Villanova, for me, the difference is Villanova had won a national title, a weird one, a long, they were an 8 seed when they beat Georgetown in the 80s. So it's a little different. Purdue doesn't have that, even if that was, 17, 19, no, probably more than that, years. It's still a generation ago they had a national title. Purdue, the true, so you say 1980, they went to Final Four. It's a long damn time ago, right? You can say that Purdue has a very rich, consistent history of being one of the greatest teams, regular season teams in college basketball, with nothing to show for it in the postseason. So becoming a postseason monster, especially with the same coach, that's crazy, right? To bring in a coach, because Jay Wright came in and he started figuring things out relatively quickly that you could tell he was an elite coach, right? It's not the same thing because Roy Williams couldn't get over the hump at Kansas. But Roy Williams would get to Final Fours and lose. I've thought about these things. I did a study on this a year ago. It's posted someplace on Boiled Sports. If you want a challenge, go find it. But I just talked about parallels. And this is actually when I used to write on the site. But interesting stuff to think about. Let's see. Al Dowd says, Purdue is a juggernaut now, boiler up. Okay, so this is what's a juggernaut. Purdue's been good for a long time. Getting to number 1 was a big deal. Getting over that hump was a big deal. We've done that now. Jay said this last year. It's one of the best things that guy said. And that is, with number one, I've said it to you guys before, expectations raise. That's not a bad thing. When expectations raise, that means you expect things to get better. Not to be good, not to be solid, not Sweet 16. Better, elite. And the next stage is elite. That's it. That's all that's left in the can for Purdue. That's the next step. So they either do that or they continue with this, and this is fine. This isn't bad. Obviously, this is pretty great to be entertained, but then say, oh, it's March. We're going to pack our bags and head back home. There's no reason to say that the season should end before the round of 8 for Purdue. No reason. They're too good. Sean Stevens says, Painter, recruiting character, first love. Yeah, first I love it. Yeah, Painter does recruit character. He recruits guys that are good fits. He doesn't recruit guys that are just shiny objects. He's figured it out. He said it before. Winning has to be enough with these guys, with these recruits. That's a big point. Because what he's saying is guys stay on the roster that could go someplace else and start. And we see multiple examples of that on this year's team. But that also comes back to a bunch of guys getting along off the court. If you see Purdue, and Adam and Jake and AJ's tell us, these Purdue players, they really get along. They come in the offseason and are hanging out and eating together, and that's a big deal. That team building, that's legit. There aren't many cliques on this team. There's so many good things in the program, and you just kind of hope, gosh, that should lead to good things. When you have all this talent, I noticed this difference this season and the end of last year, but this season versus Tennessee, one of the biggest switches for me, and I'm really talking long, but this is like a handsome hour. The big difference, Tennessee had to play an ugly, physical brand of basketball because they couldn't match up with Purdue's talent. They couldn't match up with Purdue's system. Purdue had too many horses on offense. Now, tell me the last time you can remember that happening. And I'll wait, but it's never. It hasn't happened. Purdue's had ones and twos that have been really special and great players. But to have 3 or 4 guys on the starting lineup that can take their guy one-on-one, that is a very big difference. And by the way, that's the scenario you need to get used to, because that's what Purdue will have with this incoming class. And it may not be right away with those 6, but 3 of those guys, and I'm not going to tell you which 3. I always said Jakari Harris and Cannon Catchings are really, really special offensively, in my opinion. But Harris is also a special defender. And then there's some other guys that are roles. But there's one other guy on that class that I'm quietly excited about. But get ready. This is now just a reloading. Patrick Gottschall says, it's exactly the 2019 tournament moment, Painter, calming people down that I remember. Yeah, I thought that was a huge deal. And literally, my son and we were so high up. Yum Center is such a big arena. We were way up, and we could see it. We were on that side. And I said, did you see that, to my son? He just told him, it's okay, we're not calling the timeout. And then watching on tape, I was like, wow, that was huge. That's a big deal for Painter. It's a step forward. One of the big moves forward Painter had years ago, and I've talked about this, so if you've heard this, I apologize. But he hired a sports analytics, a data analyst for the program who would be behind the bench. He just hired a different group in the offseason. But the reason he did that is he is a very cerebral guy, and I think what his whole idea was, I'm going to let data make the decision for me when I can't. And so he's got guys on his bench. I think Sash is one of these guys who's like an analyst, who is chewing up this data that's being fed to him and saying, okay, how does this work in this scenario? What's happening right now? And so that's one thing that Painter has done to try to avoid, when he gets nervous, hands are sweating. He used to always have a towel on his hands because he was sweating. He always had chapstick because he was licking his lips too much. I picked up on these. And you've seen that GIF that I put on Twitter often. I put it on the conversation with Derek Schultz. I hid that in there. Not very hiding, but I talked about AJ's. But those nervous tendencies that Painter has, he smartly tried to say, I'm going to try to get around myself. I'm going to beat myself. The next scenario, this is what I said the whole time, he needs to have a coach on the bench who he trusts enough that he can give the controls to him when he's feeling that way, who can calm the team down in a timeout during a final 8 game and just say, guys, you're effing good. You belong here. Let's go execute what we're capable of doing. Not say, I'm as nervous as you. Oh, crap. I just wet myself. He doesn't do that. But that's what he needs. He needs a guy he can trust. But obviously, he is one of the best program builders in-game coaches during the regular season, full stop. But he needs that one other guy on the bench. And he was close to having it with Shrewsbury. That's another thing. Shrewsbury, I believe, Shrewsbury's on the bench in that Tennessee game too. And Shrewsbury was a witch offensively. If you don't think he's a smart basketball mind, look at what his career has done. Look where he came from. Some of the out-of-bounds plays were just brilliant. Also, guys made plays, but that's a big part of it. PJ's becoming that, right? I don't know if he's there. He's obviously not to where Shrewsbury was, but he's got head coach written all over him. So let's see. Dang2234 says it's Jack Benter. Right, you are correct. It is Jack Benter. And the reason it's Benter, if you watched his highlights, is because of his length and his ability to finish. And so it's not just that, okay? I'll be honest. I like the guys who have this length and ability, but more than that, I like the guys that have a chip on their shoulder. Both Benter and Catchings at different times play like guys that are my height, meaning they take everything as a disrespect and an affront to them, and they want to embarrass that guy on the other side who tried to prove them that they're not a good player. I love that. I love that. That piss and vinegar attitude, the guy who's going to chew on glass, but on top of that already has talent. Holy moly. That's a combination that is just impossible to find. Impossible. And I think Painter's he's probably found 4. Well, one of them is not the most talented guy, but he's got these guys with a chip on their shoulder and they're talented and they're popped out of the NBA mold. And then he's got a couple guys that are Painter type guys, a quiet 7-footer. We've seen this before. You watch him develop. Man, the class so well designed. Jack-o'-lantern22 says, I wonder if he's asked Zoe if he would be that guy on the bench. Jay reads my mind. That's Jay Money right there, in case you didn't know, because I've hinted at that a couple times. But Conzo Martin is sitting on a chair of cash right now this evening. Maybe he's hopefully sipping something like I am, enjoying his night. Got to see Chase play. Maybe he went to the game. I don't know. Conzo Martin on the bench, holy crap. Would that be the perfect fit? Give me a year or two with Conzo. Paint loves Conzo. They get along really well. And Conzo's a guy that, man, he is smooth. He is cool. He knows his stuff. He's been through different fires. Jay knocks it out of the park. That's my dude. Jay and Conzo. I'm not going to read that, Jay. I'm not going to do that. Pat Gottschall says, I was so sad to see Shrew leave our program. Glad for his personal success. But just a couple more years on our bench would have been huge. It would have been huge for us. It would have, I know, like I think I've told you guys, I know him. I know his wife from high school. And I'm so glad they've had this opportunity. I mean, like, what a blessing. What a blessing. What a great career path. He's earned every bit of it, but man, what a great career path. The opportunity to go out to Penn State, not have to spend forever there, then come back home. They're both from Indiana. What an awesome opportunity. But now, if you watch them, Jay brought this up the other day off the camera, go find the interview or the postseason or post-game comments from Shrewsbury after Notre Dame just got beaten up. They get beaten by Chaminade or somebody at home. Shrews was pissed, and he was talking about saying, I'll get you guys out of here. He said, I'll talk to my compliance people. We'll find a house for you. We'll find a place for you to go if you're not going to show effort. But Shrewsbury's dealing with the crap. I would say I wouldn't give Shrewsbury 2 years before that team's awesome, though, because he's going to be able to recruit. You know he is, and he is a great X's and O's guy, and he's got Boilermakers all around him, too. That's not a bad thing. There's some good cloth those guys are cut from. So, yeah, let's go get Zoe. I'm with you. Pat Gottschall, let's go get Zoe. So that's it. So that was kind of a quasi-handsome hour. By the way, post-game/handsome hour, that was a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody commenting. Thanks to everybody who's here live. I mean, for a game that's, I don't want to say unimportant, but uneventful, for Purdue to just handle their business 100-57 to improve to 11-1 on the season, and they're number one. To come in and handle their business. By the way, we've been through this where they're number one and they don't handle their business. Obviously, it wasn't versus a team in the 200s. Well, not during the regular season. We saved that for March. So, but that's an awesome thing. It's a consequential thing to handle their business the way they did. I know we think it's not a big deal, but it's a step forward for the program. LBD, what you got? Did they cover? Huh? Did they cover? Oh, they covered. All right. Yeah. People have been giving me a hard time about, I understand 32.5 points, what a spread means. So, LBD just asked if they covered. Yeah, they covered. So let's see. Adam W., my man, Boiler Up, happy holidays to you, sir. And thank you for being a Boiled Sports friend and partner, Adam. My man. That's it for me. So Merry Christmas to you and yours. I don't think I'll post before Christmas unless something really inspires me. I hope it is a wonderful, blessed time with you and your family at Christmas. So I wish for you just a great time. Enjoy your blessings, whether it being something as simple and silly as being a Purdue fan, being a fan of the number one team in America, or something as wonderful, fantastic, and above and beyond, something a little taste of what our Savior has planned for us, the time with family. God bless you. Hammer down. Merry Christmas. Purdue's 11-1. Talk to you soon.